All right, thank you very much. I'm Christopher Herring. I'm the Executive Director with Global Chamber San Antonio, and I'm so happy that you're able to join us today. We have a Globinar that I believe is going to provide great value not only to your business, but to our city. Very happy to have with us the San Antonio Economic Development Foundation. Jenna Saucedo-Herrera and Sarah Sanchez will be presenting to us. And before we actually hear them speak about the future of San Antonio, I want to thank you all for attending and give you a little bit of an overview about what Global Chamber does. Today's presentation is sponsored by the City of San Antonio and Passport San Antonio. I would also like to thank the Edwards Aquifer Authority. They have been great sponsors of our events, and we are welcoming a new Global Chamber member, diplomat member, CPS Energy. Before we get started with the San Antonio Economic Development presentation, I just want to give you a quick overview to what is Global Chamber. Oftentimes we'll go into forums and we don't really understand who we're dealing with. Well, Global Chamber is a chamber of commerce that focuses on helping businesses or companies to do cross-border business. We like to use the entire globe as our playing field with 525 metropolitan markets or metros in 195 countries. Being global means that we have reach, contacts, access, exposure, information, visibility, and ultimately we bring our business connectors into a global tribe. Our founder, he's a tall guy, and you'll hear from him a little bit later, Doug Bruhnke. We use artificial intelligence where we can reach 40 million people, 100,000 organizations, and 525 metros to reach the world with our message. This was a great vision for Vision 2025, and we're still plugging at it. Members of our chamber, they receive so many different benefits that really help to grow and scale their business. I like to say that we really do a good job at making connections and cross-border relationships. You can find more at globalchamber.org. On globalchamber.org, you'll see our events calendar. It's pretty packed, folks, and it's good because you can sign up for our events as a member or as a non-member and participate. Our last event that really gave us a lot of thrust to today's event was the International State of the Metro, where Mayor Ron Nirenberg delivered a very critical speech and discussion on international business and relations. You can actually find that video on globalchamber.org and look up San Antonio. It's there. Before COVID, we were meeting with international business people. This was a group that I met with from Saudi Arabia. We had a chance, our chairwoman, Dr. Nedio, had a chance to talk to the group from Europe about our business. And then we were fortunate to meet a Russian delegation who wanted to know more about entrepreneurship. And that was a treat. I'd like to thank my Global Chamber board and staff over the years, the 3 years, who have helped us to do what we do, and we enjoy it. There are our chair, Dr. Krystal Nedio, and our chair-elect, Jorge Canavati. That's their contact information. You will hear from both of them during today's presentation. And now I'd like to have Dominique Liu to provide us with a welcome for those who are on our webinar or Globinar today.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for that introduction, Chris. My name is Dominique Liu, and on behalf of Global Chamber, we would like to go ahead and welcome the Consul General of Japan in Texas, the Honorable Hideo Fukushima, and the Consul General of Mexico in San Antonio, the Honorable Ruben Minuti, Consul for Economic Affairs of Mexico in San Antonio, Ms. Yuvia Ponce, Senior Trade Commissioner for Consulate General of Canada in Texas, Ms. Dinah Santos, the Deputy Consul General of Germany, Mr. Michael Oth. And next, we would like to also recognize the representatives of partner cities of San Antonio, the Director of Economic Development from Darmstadt, San Antonio, the sister city in Germany, Mr. Michael Colmer, International Economic Affairs Advisor from Montreal, Mr. Jean-Christophe Sinclair, a San Antonio partner city of Canada. And thank you so much for your attendance. Global Chamber would like to next recognize other special guests, the UK Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. Excuse me, my screen kind of froze over here. The lead researcher for the Industrial Strategy Council, Anna Romaniuk. And as of now, I'd like to go ahead and turn the table over to Dr. Nerio.
Can you hear me, everybody? Can you hear me, everyone? Hello?
Yes.
Sounds good.
Can you hear me, Chris?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
You're
sorry
good.
about that. My computer froze. Sorry about that. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm excited to be here, and also more importantly, take just a few moments for us to just recognize the day in itself. Today is Veterans Day. If I can get in the chat, if anybody is in chat that is a veteran, please put your name, your service, and how many years you served. Mr. Christopher Herring, if you would start it. How long were you in?
20 years.
20 years. Awesome. Do I have anybody else that's been in the military here on our panel? I can't have, let's see. Here we go. And so myself as well, I did 6 years active duty Air Force and 3 years reserves. It was on the 11th hour, the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918. It was the ending of World War I, which has evolved into what we know today as Veterans Day. And so it is much more than just the free hamburgers and the free meals, but essentially an appreciation for each other, for our brothers and sisters in the armed services, of being able to serve this great country. But I asked today, I leave with one piece here. I was also the commander for Post A37 for a few years. And so our older generation veterans are not exposed to the social media of the world, and they don't have the technology. So I do ask that you reach out to our older vets, especially our veterans, our Vietnam vets that are slowly passing, to include my father, that just would appreciate a hello, how are you, and just a sense of existing. So thank you again for having us. We appreciate being here. A salute to all my veterans out there, and let's have a great meeting.
Next, we'll have Jane Gonzalez, who will give us our event purpose.
Thank you so much, everybody. This is so exciting. I can feel the energy in the Zoom meeting, the cross collaboration. I want to thank you, Christopher, for taking a lead in organizing this event, and Mr. Doug Bruhnke, but especially Jenna Saucedo-Herrera. This is, we're in the middle of a pandemic. My company, MedWheel Incorporated, we've been in business 15 years. We're considered a second stage company. And the purpose of this meeting is for Ms. Jenna Saucedo-Herrera to really discuss all of these economic opportunities that are available through the San Antonio Economic Development Foundation, both from two different angles, on the recruitment side and also on the organic growth. In the middle of this pandemic, there's been so many things that have been affecting a lot of companies, a lot of businesses. And the other thing I like to say is I'm presenting on Friday at 1 p.m. A second stage company concept. If you guys would join me, I would really appreciate it. And again, I'm just really excited, happy to all the veterans. I appreciate everyone serving our country. And the next presenter will be the president and CEO of Funder, Doug Bruhnke. And Doug, it's just been an honor being part of the Global Chamber and You do a lot of work connecting a lot of companies around the world, and I'm really excited for the possibilities of the San Antonio Economic Development Foundation collaborating with the Global Chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Really appreciate that. Appreciate all that you do, and love the way you've pivoted within your own business to serve the community. I think one of the things that sets our next speaker apart, Rolando Pablos, is that he's got kind of what I call the three-legged stool of community service. He's got the business side of it, he's got the community service side of it, and he had the government side of it because he was appointed by Governor Greg Abbott to serve as the 111th Texas Secretary of State. And yet he's, through all of his career, has provided business support. He has given back to the community in a variety of ways. And so we really appreciate what you're doing, Secretary Pablos, and we're looking forward to listening to what you have to say today. So from Global Chamber, thank you for appearing today. Thank you for taking the time, and we look forward to learning more.
Thank you, Doug. Hello, everyone. Thanks for that introduction. You know, I'm so happy to be here today to share with everyone their global strategy that we've had in San Antonio for so many years. It's not anything that just happened today or in the recent past. This has been brewing for quite a bit. Today, I'll be introducing Jenna Saucedo, our CEO at the EDF, and Sarah Sanchez, who's our Global Development EVP. They'll explain to you a little bit more about what we're doing at the EDF. Then I'll take some, question and answers towards the end. But first, I'd like to, provide some context, if I may, about Texas and specifically about San Antonio. It's not by accident that Texas has become the 10th largest economy in the world. If we were our own country, we'd be the 10th largest economy. This started back when George W. Bush took over as governor, and then eventually with Governor Perry during his 14 years as governor, and now with Governor Abbott, we become just a very friendly state for business. And that was done on purpose. We worked very hard to change our policies, to change the law. We made regulations fair, transparent, and predictable. We made the tax burden much lighter on individuals and companies. And so we've worked really hard to make this state attractive, and now it's paying off. I heard Jenna Saucedo say earlier that, our state's Economic Development Office continues to receive interest from all over the world. And as secretary, when I travel all over the world, I would hear interest from everyone about coming to the U.S., but specifically coming to Texas. San Antonio is in the triangle, the Texas Triangle, which includes Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio, and Houston. This is where the majority of the economic development occurs, although we see a lot of economic development happening along the Texas border and along the coast. Corpus Christi is booming. And so we are really proud about what we're doing at the state level. That translates directly to what we've done at the city level. Same thing, the city has been a visionary. Our leaders all the way back from Henry Cisneros have been, visionaries in our economic development strategy, including international outreach. The reason we have Toyota here in San Antonio is because of Henry's, vision of reaching out to Japan and making those relationships happen. And everything that's happening here locally is as a result of that vision. The city of San Antonio has had trade offices in Mexico for many years. We have a chief protocol officer in San Antonio, and I believe she's on the call. And so we really have taken our international outreach seriously. Part of our success has also been that we have reached out to our consulates. There are over 90 consulates in Houston from all over the place. And in San Antonio, our consulate from Mexico has always been a great partner. And our focus with Mexico has been being that landing pad for Mexican companies and that are wishing to come to the United States. We provide them that ability, and the EDF has really done a tremendous job. With respect to Canada and the USMCA countries, we've always had excellent contact with Canada. I'm very proud of my friend Sarah Wilshaw, who's just been appointed Chief Trade Commissioner for Canada. Sarah knows Texas extremely well, and I look forward to working with her to ensure that we strengthen those relationships with Canada. But we also have seen interest from, Europe and Asia. Our relationships with Japan are just incredible. But in San Antonio, as you'll hear from Jenna, we're proud of our oil and gas industry. We're proud of our renewable energy industry, cybersecurity. Our healthcare and biotech industries are very strong here. And so with that, I'd like to pass it over and introduce Jenna Saucedo. Jenna is the CEO of the EDF. She stepped in 2016. She had excellent background in the utility space. She understands economic development. She's done a tremendous job. I believe since she's taken over, we've created over 15,000 jobs. Jenna was able to bring in the Free Trade Alliance, which was our foreign direct investment organization, focused specifically on developing those relationships abroad. She's absorbed that organization into her own. She's brought in Sarah Sanchez, who is the EVP of Global Development, and they've done a tremendous job, and we're seeing excellent success out of that. And so I, being on the executive committee of the EDF and being chair of our international council, I'm very proud of the work that Jenna has done. I'm very supportive of her efforts. And, once you hear her speak, you see how dynamic she is. And so Jenna, we're proud of you and we'd like to hear more, please, and we are from Texas, so it's okay to brag. So I'll pass it over to Jenna.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Secretary Pablos, and good morning, everyone, and happy Veterans Day to everybody that's participating in this Globinar today. Special thanks to Christopher and Jane for the invitation to be here with you. And of course, Rolando, I always have to thank you and recognize you for your stellar leadership in advocating and promoting international economic development at both the state and local level. We certainly appreciate what you have done for us over the past several years, and then now in your capacity in chairing our International Advisory Council. I can't tell you how much we appreciate your leadership and what you've been able to do for us. This morning, we plan to, as it's been mentioned by multiple speakers, we plan to provide a little bit of context about our organization, the San Antonio Economic Development Foundation. And we'll specifically discuss our comprehensive economic development strategy with a key focus on our global development efforts, how we work to promote foreign direct investment in the San Antonio region, and also how we work to facilitate trade and export development as well. I'll plan to tag team this presentation with Sarah Sanchez, and then as it was mentioned previously by Chris and Doug and others, I believe we have some time allocated on the tail end where Doug will facilitate a question and answer session between me, Sarah Sanchez, and Rolando Pablos. So let's get started. Next slide. So the Economic Development Foundation is our region's lead economic development entity. And so that, of course, means that we work in close partnership with the city of San Antonio and Bexar County, but it also means that we represent a broader 8-county region. So we have close partnerships with, for example, the city of New Braunfels, who has great working relationships and an incredible historical legacy with Germany. And then, of course, cities like Seguin, who most recently has been able to develop and nurture relationships with Japanese companies, primarily in manufacturing. Our goal as the regional EDO is to promote the San Antonio region for jobs and capital producing investments. And so we have the fancy mission, we have the fancy vision, but we exist to bring jobs. We exist to grow jobs and retain jobs within the region. And as I like to say, economic development truly is a team sport. I think you see that represented by the different panelists on our call today. But if you look at the vision, the visual to the left, it shows a little bit of how we work with so many different partners. And then Sarah will talk in a little bit more detail about how, from a global development perspective, we partner with these different entities. But as Rolando mentioned previously, we cannot do what we do at the Economic Development Foundation if we don't have the business climate for our local businesses to continue to thrive here. And as Jane mentioned, we're not just focused on recruitment of new companies and new investment into the market, primarily the majority of jobs, I think the average is about 80% across North America, of jobs produced in any community are produced by existing employers. And so making sure that we are taking care of our own, protecting our own is extremely important. Those chambers that we work with, they're our advocacy arm. So the EDF is a project management and marketing organization that works around the clock to facilitate deal flow, but our chambers are advocating and they are working to maintain those different relationships. They're working to continue to promote that business climate. And then of course we have our public partners as well providing support. Again, it was previously mentioned, we have a protocol officer. Sherry is great at what she does. And I'm sure the majority of you were on this call because Sherry facilitated introductions and mentioned that we would be having this discussion. But the city of San Antonio supports us not only from a relationship perspective, but if you think about the specific projects that we work, about 20% of the projects that flow through the Economic Development Foundation require some sort of interaction with the city or with our regional partners when it comes to incentives or different support mechanisms that those groups offer in their toolbox of sorts. A higher percentage of those projects require some sort of support on the infrastructure side. So it might be rate relief. It might be support from different utilities by way of build out and capacity for energy requirements or water requirements, et cetera. So again, economic development is a team sport. We need all the different players at the table helping to support what we do and helping to propel the San Antonio region to the forefront of top performing economies in the world. This slide here just captures in a bit more detail our different services. I have a very simple mind and I'm a very simple leader. And so economic development is a term that is extremely broad and ambiguous. But for us at the EDF, as I mentioned, we exist to produce jobs and investment. And we do that by focusing on three key buckets or three key services. Corporate recruitment, so recruitment or attraction of business and investment within the region. Business retention and expansion, as I mentioned, is a key priority for us. It is as important, if not more important to me than corporate recruitment. And then of course, workforce development. And you've seen and heard that workforce development continues to be a trend for economic development organizations across the country. But in San Antonio, we are taking that priority seriously. Next slide. We have realized over the years that if we truly want to promote economic mobility within our region, if we truly want to secure the quality jobs that we believe will present opportunity for San Antonians to truly advance and to better position our San Antonio economy, that we have got to prioritize investing in our people and investing in our place. Again, a very simple strategic framework. I'm pleased to report that most recently on the people front, on the people pillar, that San Antonians voted overwhelmingly. I believe it passed at 77%, but San Antonians overwhelmingly approved a proposition to invest in our San Antonio workforce. The mayor of San Antonio, Ron Nierenberg, he probably talked to you a bit about this during his last panel presentation, but he put a proposition on the ballot in alignment with the business community, in alignment with our economic development strategy, to reallocate, it's not a new tax, but to reallocate an existing tax, some tax revenues, to specifically invest in training San Antonians in the demand industries and the in-demand occupations that we're growing here in San Antonio. So if you think about between $30 and $35 million annually will be invested over the next 4 years to specifically focus on tuition reimbursement, wraparound services like childcare, et cetera, to make sure that San Antonians are actively pursuing degree paths that, again, can promote economic mobility for them and their families, but that can also better position the San Antonio economy going forward. We also have significant work-based learning programs in this space and career pathways planning, all aligned to the target industries that Rolando previously mentioned that we're working actively to grow here within the region. And then on the place side, again, you have to invest in the quality of place and in the environment that we're doing business. And also on the ballot here recently, San Antonio voters approved a proposition to support via our mass transportation company in San Antonio to improve routes, to improve frequency of service. And then forthcoming, we'll continue to activate around regional centers around the region, right? This is not just San Antonio proper, but around the region. We are working to activate different regional nodes to promote capital investment by industry. So the south of San Antonio has naturally become a manufacturing powerhouse with Toyota and their 23 suppliers, and now Navistar and their potential suppliers. And we have work to do to continue to invest in the infrastructure requirements, both energy, water, roads, to make sure that we continue to position those companies, but also future companies for success in that area. That's one example. We can replicate that example across industries and across regional locations in San Antonio. Next slide. On the global development front, as Rolando mentioned, 2 years ago, we were successful in integrating the Free Trade Alliance. And I'm sure that many of you on this Globinar have interacted with the Free Trade Alliance in the past and have relationships with some of those key executives that we were able to bring on board. In fact, Sarah led that organization for a few years. But the idea there is we work to create a powerhouse, centralized economic development organization focused on global investment. So previously we had the Free Trade Alliance over time working to build out exceptional programs for trade and export development services. And the EDF was actively leaning into foreign direct investment because of their robust corporate recruitment arm. And so what we did 2 years ago is we said, if we truly want to gain economies of scale, if we truly want to position ourselves externally, it makes sense to bring these organizations together to promote global development across the region. We already have so many different partners supporting what we do. If we can come together and we can elevate performance, why not take a shot at that level of investment? And so we've done that. We've brought the private sector and public sector investment, primarily on the private side, together to support that centralized organization. And in just the past 2 years, we have worked about 16 international projects. We've secured $1 billion in foreign direct investment, which outperforms decades of work that we've done as separate entities in San Antonio. And then, of course, we've secured over 3,500 jobs from international companies. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sarah Sanchez, who runs that centralized international organization for us. And really, these are Sarah's successes here on this slide. I just have the opportunity to brag about her successes with all of our different partners in the international space. And so Sarah, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jenna. It's a pleasure to be with you all this morning. Thank you, Chris, for the opportunity to present. I would like to say that the success is shared with our partners at the city, the county, the local team at EDF. Tom oversees our business development team, and we have Michelle, Sean, and they're all tuned in, so a shout out to the team. But our global development strategy is focused on 2 areas, as you heard, foreign direct investment and trade, which is guided by our International Advisory Council, and that is chaired by Secretary Rolando Pablos. So foreign direct investment for us is defined as corporate recruitment of international companies that have a job producing investment, such as corporate headquarters, manufacturing plant, or some type of facility that they're looking to establish here in the US. And so to attract foreign direct investment, we really execute on 3 main tactics. One is traveling internationally on investment promotion missions overseas to meet with site selection consultants, to meet with corporate executives, to tell them about our community and the strategic advantages of San Antonio. The second tactic is really utilizing in-country representatives. So in Japan, we have a consultant that represents us through the Texas Japan office. We also utilize the city of San Antonio's office in Mexico City, Casa San Antonio, to help identify leads or companies that have a project for the US. And then we follow up with those companies, visit with them, pitch them on San Antonio. The third tactic is a program that we operate called the International Business Development Center. It provides basically a low-cost entry for companies to come into the US. These are companies that aren't ready to make that big capital investment in a brick and mortar type operation. They still need to understand the business climate. They're just dipping their toe in the water. So the soft landing program is a gateway for them to come into the US. And then once they're ready to establish a larger operation, that's where our business development team will work with them on their site selection. The second element is trade development. So we provide a variety of programs and services to the local business community as part of our business retention and expansion services. So for companies that are new to export, we do offer a program called the Export Leaders Program that basically is a 6-month course focused on the fundamentals of exporting. For those that are already exporting, we do provide notarization services of their trade documents. So a lot of times they'll have to have their certificate of origin notarized and other documents. And so we provide that service. And then for those companies that are just interested in learning about or hearing about trade topics, we coordinate quarterly trade talks. In fact, we have one coming up on December 4th, featuring our local Consul General of Mexico, Minuti, here in San Antonio. So we'll share the information and invite you all to participate on December 4th. So as you can see, the foreign direct investment initiatives and the trade development programs and services take a lot of resources, a lot of planning. And so we're honing in on certain target markets, and you see them listed here on the slide. On the next couple of slides, I'll explain the process and how we identify these target markets. So I know I have to go quick. We don't have a whole lot of time, but I'm happy to share with you more details as a follow-up. Here's a quick map of some of the foreign direct investment that we have here in San Antonio. The map shows FDI from Mexico, Canada, Asia, Europe. You probably recognize a few of these local, or I would say global brands, Bimbo from Mexico, Toyota from Japan, Bitdefender from Romania. This next slide hones in on the FDI that we have from Japan. San Antonio has over 30 Japanese companies with operations here in San Antonio. This did not happen overnight. To Secretary Pablos' point earlier. San Antonio has been developing a relationship with Japan dating back to the 1980s. Our former mayor, Henry Cisneros, established a relationship with Mrs. Shirani. And since then, we have been developing the relationship. It first culminated in a sister city relationship with the city of Kumamoto. And Sherry, who's on this call, oversees that sister city relationship. And since then, we've established our in-country representation through the Texas Japan office. Mrs. Shirani was head of that. She has since passed, and Hiro-san is now our consultant, and he's been working with us for several years. And so we'd like to see this type of investment, this concentration of investment from each of the countries or the target markets that we have identified. But it does take time, it takes resources, and it takes dedication. So to get to this point, the city of San Antonio was selected by the Brookings Institution to participate in a study. And the study was basically called the Market Prioritization Study. That would help cities identify target markets based on data that aligned with industries in their community, that aligned with different elements. And so the process was led by the city of San Antonio, the Economic Development Department. EDF also participated. We helped to validate these markets with our industry representatives to make sure that the data matched what industry was seeing. And so we had a list for each industry, and you can imagine each list had at least 10 or 15 markets for each industry, but we had to narrow it down. And so we looked at how did the different markets cross-pollinate with the different industries, so that way we could get the most bang for our buck. And so this is how the list shook out, because we had to pick like the top 5 or 6, because again, it takes a lot of time, a lot of resources, and we just wanted to identify the top 5 or 6 that we could focus on, where it would result in us being able to attract investment from these communities. So the new markets were Toronto, Frankfurt, and Seoul. And then we said, well, Japan is such a great resource for us. Let's keep Tokyo on the list. Same with Mexico. Let's keep Mexico City on the list. So SAEDF is focused on executing FDI and trade programs and services for these different target markets. There is a bigger comprehensive list that includes other locations too as well. And the city of San Antonio, through Passport San Antonio, an initiative that they have, will focus on these target markets for other items such as education, tourism, diplomacy, and culture. So a little bit about the region. These next couple of slides provide information on the demographics, the target industries, and why a company should pick San Antonio. So when we're traveling internationally, this is our pitch to the different companies. Basically, first and foremost, we want to let them know about the region that we represent, which is the San Antonio, New Braunfels area. It includes 8 counties, 4 principal cities, and represents a population of 2.5 million. And this is important because a company wants to understand what is the size of the market that they're going into, what is the labor force, what does the labor pool look like? And so we can provide them with additional data, but this quickly shows more or less the region that we are talking about. In terms of the industries that we are focused on growing and the industries that we see thriving in our community, you heard earlier, cybersecurity, tech, life science, and manufacturing are all thriving. But what a lot of people don't know are these little tidbits that we can dive into. So for example, cybersecurity. San Antonio has the highest concentration of cybersecurity professionals outside of Washington, DC. And we have a pipeline that is coming from the private sector, from the military, and from our local university. In fact, the University of Texas at San Antonio has the #1 cybersecurity program in the nation. So they're generating students that have certifications already, and they're lining them up for jobs in the private sector and with the military too as well. Tech is also seeing above average growth in tech jobs and talent. And I would say if you combine cybersecurity and tech, these 2 industries have an economic impact of over $2 billion in our community. And just to touch on international companies that are making an investment in these industries, I'd like to highlight Bitdefender, which just announced last year their selection of San Antonio for their customer support service center and security operations center. And Bitdefender is from Romania. On the tech side, we have Rackspace, which is a domestic company, but they operate on a global scale and they have their corporate headquarters here in San Antonio. On the life science side, we have a lot of research going on because of the military presence here in San Antonio. And in fact, over $1 billion is dedicated to federal research and development. So you have institutions here in San Antonio, such as the Texas Biomedical Foundation, UT Health, and others that are conducting research on infectious diseases and treatments and even testing the COVID vaccine too as well. On the manufacturing side, where we see growth happening is on the automotive side. You've heard Jenna mention already Toyota's investment here in San Antonio, as well as Navistar. So what we're seeing too internationally are suppliers that now want to establish an operation here in San Antonio if they have a contract already with Toyota or Navistar or are looking to get a contract. And so automotive sector is growing really strong. The food and beverage side too as well. We have several food and beverage manufacturers here. From Japan, we have Morishan that manufactures ramen noodles. And we have others too as well from Canada, FGF, which manufactures ready-to-eat products that you find at your local Starbucks and other places too as well. And then last but not least, aerospace. Our niche there is in maintenance, repair, and overhaul, or MRO of aircraft. So manufacturing has an economic impact of 40 billion, and that is growing strong day by day. So why San Antonio? I'm going to talk a little bit about our strategic location, profitable business environment, and qualified workforce. So in terms of our location, when a company is looking to establish operation, they really look to see, how can I serve my customers that are on the East Coast and on the West Coast or in Mexico? And so San Antonio sits at the crossroads of Interstates I-10 and I-35. So for a company looking to set up a manufacturing plant or a warehouse distribution operation, you can distribute your product north, south, east, or west via these interstates. In addition to that, we have two major railroads in San Antonio that serve our community, Union Pacific and Burlington Northern Santa Fe. Combine that with our central location, central time zone, and then low incidence of disruptive weather or natural disasters. I can tell you, we get this request a lot, especially from Japan. They want to make sure that if they have an operation in San Antonio, that it's not going to be impacted by a hurricane or an earthquake or what have you. And so San Antonio is 2 hours inland from the coast, so we don't really get impacted by the hurricanes. And so with that, that provides them with a sense of security that their operation will be safe. Next is our profitable business environment. Starting at the state level, the state of Texas does not levy a personal income tax or corporate income tax or payroll tax. This is a big reason why actually a lot of companies from California are relocating to Texas. In addition to that, Texas is a right to work state. So as a result, you don't really see a large presence of the unions here. And so for manufacturing operations, the lack of a union or the low threat of a union, I should say, is really important to those types of operations. I would like to add on the local level, our two utilities, SAWS and CPS Energy, are both municipally owned. And so as a result, they provide competitive rates and reliable service, providing water, electric, and gas service to our customers here in San Antonio. The third reason is our qualified workforce. And this slide basically shows a quick snapshot of the labor pool for advanced manufacturing. And then on the right side, what the education pipeline looks like. And we have a slide like this for each industry. And so depending on who we're meeting with, we'll customize the presentation for them. But SA Works is part of SAEDF, and SA Works bridges the gap between our educational partners and industry to ensure that the programs that are being offered meet industry needs. And so that's very important because as technology changes, as there are new products and services, we need to make sure that the programs are keeping up to date with what is happening in the market. So on the manufacturing side, just like to highlight at the high school level, we're starting early. There are several programs. The one shown here is called CAST, and it basically provides students with hands-on learning, and they get to test the robotics, they get to manufacture some other products too as well. And then hopefully that puts them on the course to pursue certifications, a 2-year certification at the local community college, and then move on to a 4-year degree. Our industry partners also have other training programs too as well, such as Texas FAME. So again, we can provide additional information for each industry. Jenna, did you want to chime in here?
I did. Thank you so much. I apologize for interjecting, but I think another key focus area, specifically as it relates to the qualified workforce, is the exponential population growth that we are experiencing in the San Antonio region. So Sarah mentioned in a former slide that we were sitting at about 2.5 on the population front, and that's expected to double over the next decade or so. And as it relates specifically to a lot of these international geographies that we're dealing with that are experiencing declining population growth, they're specifically looking at that workforce opportunity, but also the market opportunity here within the region and for North America specifically. So our programs are stellar, and we've got a lot of work to do to continue to improve in alignment around curriculum and the in-demand industries that we're creating here. But I think that population growth is just a sheer growth and number is impressive to a lot of these international geographies. And then I'm going to close this out on the next slide, if you don't mind. And we don't have much time for Q&A, so I was just going to try to speed us up here. But this is important. I get asked this question a lot now that we're living in a COVID economy or in this pandemic era. You know, how has San Antonio been hit? Where is the San Antonio region looking to position going forward? And so I think this slide is extremely important. Obviously, this pandemic did not discriminate against any industry, against any organization, large or small, or against any geography. San Antonio certainly wasn't excluded from that. The majority of our unemployment claims have been specifically in hospitality and food service accommodation. Again, no surprise to anybody on this call. But in looking ahead and having a positive outlook about where we're going, I think it's important to understand the national trends. And that's what this slide represents here. These aren't just San Antonio trends, they are national trends. In about the May timeframe, we worked with a consortium of economic development organizations across the country to survey site selection consultants and to survey top CEOs. And what we were hearing was that, you know, in this new remote work environment, obviously, you know, we're predominantly still working remotely. However, that's not expected to change anytime soon, right? So a lot of corporations across the country and around the world are looking at hybrid models to continue to facilitate going forward. And so that remote work environment presents an opportunity for us specifically on the tech side, but also on the information security or cybersecurity front as well. And so we're seeing a lot of activity in the country there, but primarily in San Antonio as well. If you look at our pipeline, our tech and cybersecurity data center operations, they're upticking significantly. As you can imagine, there's also a significant movement to onshore or reshore supply chains. And so when you think about manufacturing or even e-commerce from a logistics perspective, a lot of these companies are looking to reduce their risk, right? Being a low seismic activity center is one thing, but being closer to your operation just naturally reduces that risk, right? And so we've also seen a significant uptick in manufacturing and logistics projects here locally. And again, that's a national trend that will continue to position us. And then just to close out on the bioscience side, just to kind of put a pin into some of what Sarah mentioned earlier, Regeneron, which is what President Trump was treated with when he was diagnosed with COVID, was tested here locally in San Antonio. And so from an R&D perspective, we are positioned extremely well, given our big four research institutions, UTSA, UT Health, SWERI, Southwest Research Institute, and Texas Biomed, to continue to conduct that research here, but also to potentially secure manufacturing operations specifically aligned to that bioscience research. So again, these are national trends that we're seeing. And San Antonio, given our clusters of opportunity within these different sectors, we believe that we are incredibly well positioned to capitalize on these trends. And we're already seeing it in our pipeline today. And as we previously mentioned, the state is seeing that same type of activity. So with that, Christopher, Jane, Doug, we'll close out our presentation, stop sharing slides, and hand it over to you all to facilitate next steps in the discussion.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Jenna. Doug, you have some questions for this illustrious group.
Really exciting to hear the progress that you've made. One of the questions I had was, I've lived in Japan, and I know that's really hard. And you mentioned how Mayor Cisneros 30 years ago plus was involved and started it, and the Kumamoto relationship is amazing. So you've done a lot of really great work in building the groundwork. You've kind of taken it to the next level. Global Chamber was started because a guy named Barry Goldwater Jr., the son of the senator, stood up in a meeting and said, we need to keep foreigners out of Arizona because they take our jobs. And so that got me the next day to start what became Global Chamber, because I thought that was one of the dumber things I'd heard, certainly that week and probably for quite a while. So how have you been able to kind of overcome that old thinking that, how the foreigners are going to take us over? And maybe that's just, 10 years ago, that was kind of a thing. That doesn't seem to be a thing at all. You've become very practical about it. You've recognized the value to it. So how do you ever run into that? How do you push past it? And then kind of what's the next step? How do you stay in front of everybody?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm going to answer in about 30 seconds and then defer to Secretary Pablos to chime in as well. But I think you hit the nail on the head. You cannot talk about workforce development and talent pipeline without having a broader conversation about immigration policy and reform. And again, not to get too political here, we could probably, Chris, we could have an entire session just about that one topic. But with what we do, we are focused on these international organizations creating jobs in San Antonio. And it is so great for me to say that Aishin, right out of Japan, is creating 1,200 jobs for San Antonians, right up in Cibolo. And so we changed the dynamic in that conversation to talk more about partnerships and what these international companies are investing in San Antonio and what they need from our workforce here in San Antonio. But Secretary, I'll hand it over to you if you want to chime in as well.
Thanks. If you take a look at the foreign investment in Texas, you'll be shocked to see where it's coming from. We have thousands of companies that have arrived here from other parts of the world. Japan is the #1 employment or job producer in Texas when it comes to an international, from a foreign country. And so, Japan has had a tremendous impact on our labor force. They keep hiring, they keep coming in. And so, if you take a look at Japan, you take a look at the UK, Canada, my company's helping a Canadian company right now land here in Texas from Quebec, from Montreal. And so, we have been very welcoming of that foreign direct investment. And along with that, the management and those individuals that come with these companies. My first job out of law school was with a Quebecois company, and the facilities here sounded like the UN. We had people from all over the world, and that's been part of the success, is that we are open for business, and particularly we're very welcoming of foreign investors and their people. So our record speaks for itself. We are a global destination.
Congratulations. Come a long way. I actually started my career in a place called Beaumont, Texas, which I told Representative Brady, it's not the end of the world, but you can see it from there. And certainly 40 years ago when I started, it wasn't at all global, at all. And Representative Brady, by the way, used to be the president of the Chamber of Commerce in Beaumont. He told me that because he said, we had a better slogan than that one that you just gave me. So Texas has made so much progress. You've made so much progress in San Antonio. In those days when I visited San Antonio, I wished I was there instead of Beaumont, for sure. So congratulations on that progress. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. So I suppose we don't have any more time for questions, unless, let's see. Before I hand it off to my good friend Jorge Canavati, is there one more question that we might field, or what should we do here? Let's see. I'm not seeing any on the chat, so let me do this. Let me hand it over to Don Jorge. Congratulations, sir, on becoming the next chair of your chamber. I am so happy to see what you all are doing, what you have done. anything that promotes global interaction, building bridges, attracting investment, and reciprocating as well. Sending our talent, our services, and our products abroad is very important. So, Jorge, thank you for everything that you've done, everything that you're doing, and I'll just hand it over to you.
And Mr. Secretary, before Jorge speaks, we had a great opportunity to celebrate him. He received from the San Antonio Council for International Visitors, the International Leadership Award. And so that's one of the reasons why I recruited that guy. He's a heavy lifter and he's a great man.
My wallet's empty. No.
Well deserved. You know, the only time I would see Jorge is at the airport on our way to Mexico.
Yes.
Or back from Mexico.
Yes. We would just wave.
You know, we would just see each other at the airport. So I'm so proud of the work he's done. Thank you, Jorge.
I appreciate you, my friend. And thank you, Chris. And of course, extraordinary presentation by Jen and Sarah. I'm just going to do some closing remarks before I pass it on to Joel. Everything that these lovely ladies said is spot on. I was talking to Sarah the other day that we should expand that. San Antonio has turned into a very critical, a very strategic domestic and international distribution center. You will see actual distribution centers come up like flies all over the city and surrounding areas for domestic and international products. Of course, this is because of our railroads that Sarah mentioned, and international companies are doing this as well. The UP, the BN, they use San Antonio as the logistics operational center for what is known as blocking trains. Trains coming down with auto parts to Mexico and coming back and to other parts of the U.S. become redirected here. They are redirected to their final destinations. This is very, very important. Another important aspect is that Mexico is the largest customer of San Antonio for refined fuels. This is important. We're talking now a regional basis. A lot of the San Antonio companies that have their refining capacity in Corpus export to Mexico that fuel, forgive the pun, the industry in Mexico that manufactures and exports products back to our region and to the world. We, of course, at the Global Chamber support the development of Mexico's capacity for refined fuels. The market will continue to grow after this COVID thing is over, and that local production, the domestic production, will be supplemented with Texas exports. This is very important, and it's not something that's going to go away. It will grow. Again, Mexico, Canada is number 2 after San Antonio. So everything that we discussed here today is spot on. The advanced manufacturing, the auto parts, we spoke about trade. We spoke exports, trade, but we didn't talk about the imports, such as the chassis from Metals and Monterrey that come by rail to the Toyota facility. So what is our job? It is very simple to continue to support EDF, Jenna, Sarah, all the wonderful job they're doing as chambers, as a community, because this is how the growth is going to happen. The foreign direct investment, the manufacturing, and that is the growth, the workforce. It's all one, but our job is to support Jenna, the EDF, Rolando, Sarah, and all the team. And with that said, Joel, Engulu, what's going to happen? What's coming up? Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Jorge. Thank you for the introduction. I just want to highlight 2 quick events that are coming up that Global Chamber is going to be a part of. The first one is Miss Jane Gonzalez is going to be speaking at 1 o'clock this Friday, speaking on small business opportunities, second stage companies. So she'll elaborate more about that. I do believe that San Antonio, as the 7th largest city, will become a beacon for international relations and just for business growth in the near future. So she will elaborate more about that this Friday. So you don't want to miss that. The second one will be connecting businesses from Africa specifically. We have Lily Gunny. She's on our board chamber as well. So she'll be speaking more about establishing relationships overseas in Africa, Egypt, just various countries there. We mentioned before today, earlier, talking about in Japan, how we brought Toyota over here through relationships. So key for building, especially foreign relationships, is those established relationships of people already over there. So I do believe growing and connecting that and that aspect will help San Antonio as a whole. So those are 2 events that are coming up, and I thank you everyone for being here. This is humbling for me, learning from all you guys. This is really humbling. Thank you, Chris.
We appreciate you, Joel.
Thank y'all so much.
Anything else, Chris? Team, as we appreciate everyone being here today. We're going to have more events like this. Chris and I are steaming wonderful things to come, as well with our wonderful chair, Krystal, and we will see you very soon, and happy Veterans Day to all, especially to my son and to my daughter-in-law, Marine and Air Force.
Cool.
We're good. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Jenna.
Well done.
All right.